The topic this week is tampons. Statistically, my followers are largely adolescent males, so this should be highly relevant to you, dear viewer. Tampons are the subject of this week's podcast, so let's learn why we should give a shit about this topic right now.
Why should you give a shit?
Time magazine says feminine hygiene products include, quote, a group of chemicals sometimes referred to as endocrine disruptors because they may mess with the hormones your body's endocrine system regulates. They've been linked to brain disorders, reproductive issues, obesity, and cancer. Experts say tampons belong in this growing list of potentially hazardous personal care products, unquote. Brain disorders, reproductive issues, obesity, and cancer. Well, good thing we don't put these things anywhere sensitive, am I right, folks? Now, Amy Zoda of George Washington University says, quote, research shows fragranced feminine care products may raise a woman's exposure to phthalates, a class of suspected endocrine disruptors. Some research has linked to developmental issues like lower IQs and higher rates of asthma, unquote. So that explains it for women, but how do we explain my low IQ and my low IQ? Also, as with other products, the fragrance and tampons and other cosmetics, quote, may contain allergens, sensitizers, neurotoxins, and synthetic musks, which can also disrupt hormones, unquote. Oh my God, it just gets worse and worse. To think that I was gonna call my new perfume line synthetic musk. Oh, and the environment doesn't really like them either because according to Nat Geo, in 2018 alone, people in the US bought 5.8 billion tampons, and over the course of a lifetime, a single menstruator will use somewhere between 5 and 15,000 pads and tampons, the vast majority of which will wind up in landfills as plastic waste. So the situation is bad, folks, real bad. And I'm no statistician, but I'd wager that it affects about 50%, give or take, of the population directly, and of course the rest of us indirectly. But how do we solve this? Now, if only there were a podcast guest, someone out there this week who would help us solve these problems. Well, I'll just keep wishing for that while you stew in these statistics, but how would you solve this problem?
My name is Celia Pool, and I beat the often path by really just going there where other people don't want to go, especially when it comes to menstrual health, and forcing people, largely investors who are male, that this is a really important subject. And this is something that has more of an effect on their life than they think, and forcing them to do that and look at it. So yeah, that's the way that I roll.
Thank you for joining me, Celia. I'm already intrigued. Okay, so what is it? What's the mission that you have set yourself out upon here?
I'm the co-founder of Dame, and we make sustainable period products. And basically, we believe that women and the planet deserve better. And that is looking at everything across the range from acceptability of these products, accessibility of these products, and sustainability of these products. And those are like the really three key pillars that we look at. So we have things like our world's first award-winning reusable tampon applicator. We have organic cotton tampons, which are biodegradable and compostable. And we have reusable period pads.
Well, that's quite a start already. So how did you come about this problem? How did you become aware that this was a problem, and how did you figure out that it was something that you wanted to solve?
Well, I definitely didn't start out life thinking that I wanted to become a tampon salesperson.
You didn't?
No.
I thought that was everybody's initial goal.
Bizarrely, that was never in my kind of like list of things to do. But okay. No, it's kind of like it randomly, I've always been like a massive raging feminist. Mm-hmm. And I knew that when I just had my first child and was deciding to go back into the world of work, I was just like, I want to do something that has purpose. I have no idea what that is, but I know I want to do something with purpose. I know I want to do something around supporting women, but I have no idea what that is again. And It was through a chance conversation with who is now my co-founder, where we got to talking about tampons for some reason. And for me, the interest that I had was never around the actual tampon itself. It was more around the kind of wider discourse. My baby was a girl, and I was amazed by the fact that the same attitude was still around with tampons that it was decades before when I first got my period. And I wanted it to change for my daughter. And I thought, okay, this can't really happen. We've got to change the conversation in this. And that's how it started out. But we very quickly, after sort of running a business for a while, realized that actually we wanted to take it down a more sustainable path.
Interesting. So what was the initial idea then? What did you want to change in the beginning?
So the initial idea was a business called Sanitary Owl. It was a pun on sanitary towel, which we thought was hilarious. And we therefore just had basically lots and lots of fun sitting on a sofa with laptops, coming up with stupid puns day after day.
See, and you were giving me crap for the pun of my show. Now I see that that's not fair. Right. So Sanitary Owl, yeah.
You got a
Very
lot
clever.
of fun.
Yes,
and,
always.
Always plugging.
Yes.
And so basically we were doing that for a while, and that was all centered around convenience and choice and making the subject matter more normalized. And it was only actually when we really got to look up close and personal with the subject that we saw that these products are not regulated in the EU, which is where I'm from. I'm from the UK.
Yep.
They're not regulated. So that thing which you think is white and cotton and fluffy isn't, because they don't have to disclose the ingredients. And when we actually got closer to it, we saw that they are filled with all sorts of synthetic substances, which you know nothing about. There is so much plastic waste that comes from them. I mean, the stats are scary. I think it's 100 billion period products are thrown away every year. And the majority of these are non-recyclable because they've touched the body and they've got blood on them. And that's a huge amount of things. This is a product which, it's not a choice. It's not a coffee cup. It's not a plastic bag. Half the population get their period every month. And this is really, really important thing that people weren't really talking about. And so for us, that was the real sort of like wake up call to be like, okay, right, we really want to make sure that we can do something in this space.
So how quickly did you become aware of the scope of this problem?
I think it took us like a few years of working in the industry to really see it for what it was and do some really good digging. And that's the thing is, like, it's difficult to do digging because this market is controlled by a monopoly of companies. And there, as everyone hopefully is like rightly realizing now, there is such minimal funding done into women's health. So therefore, all these issues, like you're saying, that can come of something that is sitting inside your body or sitting against your skin for hours and hours, and actually cumulatively years of your life.
Right.
And people aren't really registering what that's doing to them. And I remember finding it fascinating, like speaking to friends of mine and being like, wait, hold on. You are thinking what you're putting in your mouth every single time, but you are not thinking about what you're putting in one of the most important places of your body. And you're just leaving something there completely done on trust. And all of this is done because we've been sold a marketing line of discretion and people needing to keep this subject a taboo and not talk about it. And no one needs to know you're on your period. You know, that's helped keep the whole thing going and perpetuating. And I think now is the time that things need to stop and people actually really need to start looking at what they're putting inside their bodies.
So not only is it something that people aren't thinking about, it's actually worse than stuff that you eat because there's essentially no protection against these kinds of chemicals.
Yeah, there just needs to be a lot greater funding going into women's health because there is such a range of issues that women face, like day on day, which we push down and we just get on with. And, you know, we did a really interesting survey with our customers recently where we asked them, okay, like since using our products, what have you felt? And we had amazing stats, like over 50% said that they get lighter periods now. Wow. I think it was around sort of 70% say that they get less painful periods. Like these are incredible things, which of course, if you're putting something more natural in your body, you are going to get a better reaction to it. But we haven't been making that connection. And this is why I'm very lucky that I now sit on a board of women's health, where we are pushing in the UK to get better funding for women's health so that we can find out what is actually going on with our bodies with these products that we're being sold.
Well, maybe describe to me the journey. So you have this idea, you become aware of this problem, you have a co-founder, Alec Mills. How did you get started with this idea? What were the first steps that you took?
Well, when we decided to pivot the company and turn it into Dame, you know, neither of us had like a solid background in product design. Like I come from a project management background in the art world. He comes from finance. But I think what both of us realize is actually, like anything, talking to people is the most important thing, reaching out, having discussions. Alec did work in finance, but is a very like creative person, and basically sat there with a notebook, drawing designs, and really making sure that we were honing down what exactly it was that we wanted. And I think one of the most important things that we realized really early on in our journey was, as much as we wanted to do this from a sustainability and health play, we really needed to make sure that the product looked beautiful, because at the end of the day, that's what sells. And we knew if we wanted to convert people across to this, we needed to make sure that we were selling something very design-led. So that informed all of our decisions and really led us down a journey of partnering with some incredible freelancers, majority who are women, because we wanted to make sure that we were using women at every step of the way.
Sure.
And it really led us down to that classic kind of startup lean. Okay, we've got a prototype. What do we do with it now? Is this just a crazy idea between the two of us? What's the cheapest way to work it out? Let's put it on Kickstarter. And so Kickstarter for us was the real boost for us to go forward, because that was when things really got interesting.
Fascinating. What was the target that you set on Kickstarter?
So we set our target for £20,000 and we ended up raising just under 120,000.
Whoa. How did you get the word out about it?
We didn't really. We got picked up by a lot of people. Like, we were just two tiny people. You know, we hired like a tiny press person to kind of put some stuff out, and suddenly it blew up. And I think the reason why it blew up was because this is the kind of thing that people were looking for. And, you know, we ended up trending on Twitter on day 3 of our campaign. We had all sorts of bonkers people talking about us. And that led to lots of retailers getting in touch with us, wanting to stock this product, which for us was bonkers, because this was a product which we hadn't even built at this stage. That's
so cool. So very quickly then, you were aware, we've tapped into something here. Almost immediately, it sounds like.
Yes, I think it came at a time where suddenly this plastic crisis came into the forefront of people's minds. And, you know, consumers were pushing the market in that direction and saying that we want to make a better change. We just don't know how to do it. And they were wanting to look for ideas like ours, which were making those changes very simply. Because I think that's the really important thing to remember, is there have been other examples of, in our sector, more sustainable products, things like menstrual cups, which have been around for decades.
Right, I've seen those.
Because there wasn't that connection, that bridging gap between people having to use something totally different to what they used before and really alien to them, because there were companies like ours who were trying to bridge that gap and make it easy for the consumer. I think that's what really resonated.
What did you do with the funding? What did you decide to do with the excess that you got from the Kickstarter?
Buy a tampon-shaped plane? No, we didn't.
I knew it.
No, we literally, that all went into production, and actually we needed more to get into production as well. So it was all very much needed and used. And we then set about for the rest of that year, really getting the whole thing kicked off, because at that stage, we suddenly then started having orders from one of the most major supermarkets in the UK. So we needed additional funding in order to get that order into production. So it was a very, very busy year. And then we properly launched in 2019 in both a major UK supermarket and online.
Wow. And nobody else was doing this? Were you the first, or were there other small people trying it?
So we were the first, and yeah, it was really interesting. We've since had other people come in behind us. We've even actually had like a major brand trying to come in behind us as well, which, you know, is quite flattering really, because it means that actually we are predicting and moving the category where it's going.
Right.
And since then we've gone on to launch in several other like quite high profile UK companies such as Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Boots, Ocado, ASOS. And yeah, it's been incredible to see the trajectory, and not just that, but to see the doors open to us from many other areas. Like, we are a tampon brand, which traditionally is the thing that, you know, no one really wants to be associated with.
Right.
But we have won a design award from Design, which is like an international body. We have had fashion brands wanting to partner with us. We managed to get a really high-profile campaign up on 200 London buses in the UK.
I saw that. I saw those images. Really cool. Those double-decker buses looked great.
Yeah, they were amazing. That was a really awesome story, because that was an image from one of our customers that she posted of herself in her underwear with her tampon string hanging out. And we said it was such a beautiful image because she was really owning it and she was really normalizing it. And so we thought, okay, right, what better way to make this subject matter more acceptable than put that image on a bus to make people see that actually that is a beautiful image. It's a normal image. It's not something to hide or be scared about. And it was incredible the amount of reaction that we got from it.
And, one thing that's always bothered me is when people think about personal changes, swapping out a light bulb for an energy efficient light bulb, changing tiny things, eating less meat. There's often this sentiment these days that the individual can't make much of a difference, that it's the corporations. If I recycle some plastic or don't use plastic, it doesn't matter because Coca-Cola is pumping out so many billions of plastic bottles per day. I've never really bought that argument because people act like these corporations dictate everything, and to some degree they do, but also our behavior dictates how much business they can do. So if we all stop drinking Coca-Cola, then there's going to be fewer bottles out there. So I've never bought the idea that what you do doesn't matter. And I think even something as small as this, as seemingly small as this, can be exactly what's needed to make big changes. Do you feel the same?
Totally is. I think it's complete bull that your individual decisions don't have an effect. You are the market. You are the way that the market is going. And if you show the market that you want to go and use other things, even in your incremental small steps, it starts a ripple effect of the way those big companies are behaving. Case in point in the fact that we launched a reusable tampon applicator 2 years ago. We now have one of our major competitors who are trying to get in on it as well. They hear those signals and they want to change as well. I think what's obviously important is making sure that we all push for legislative change and making sure that you get in touch with, for here in the UK, your local MP, making sure that you are pushing for the right kind of people to be making those bigger changes for you. But 100% you need to be doing those market changes yourself, because otherwise nothing will change. There will be no pressure on anyone to do anything.
And also I've read that they contain, things like fragrances. And there was even a documentary about what fragrance means. I can't remember what it's called, but fragrance is just a blanket term for any number of chemicals, many of which are horrible. And they're also not ever really defined, right?
Totally. And also, should you be telling a girl who's sort of 10, 11, 12, getting her period for the first time, that she needs to be fragranced?
Right.
Because in effect, you're telling her that she stinks, and you're telling her that this natural bodily odor of hers is wrong. And you think about the effect that has on a girl's confidence, the ripple effect it has into what she feels about her body, how she communicates her body to other people.
Yeah.
And you actually see that this issue that we're trying to push, it just isn't about periods. It's about a wider issue of making sure that confidence levels are still there, because there is right now an uphill struggle for people who are getting their periods to think, okay, I'm cool about my body, when we're told that we need to fragrance it, we need to wash it, we need to hide it, we need to not talk about it. That needs to stop.
Too damn smart for your own good? Want to lower your IQ by 10 points while you wait? Introducing Synthetic Musk, newly scented feminine hygiene products only from RP. Now available in 2 life-altering flavors: Toxic Cherry, that's cherry with a T in front of it, and Landfill Lychee. Harm the planet and yourself in the process with Synthetic Musk brand of feminine hygiene products only from RP.
Horrible things. I've got a list here. I just keep reading and it's all just terrible. All the additives and various stuff, and that's just on the body.
We need to get some puns in. We need to get some lulls in.
Yes. Okay, so tell me a funny story. What's a funny startup story?
God, I'm trying to think of some funny startup stories. I mean, the thing is with us, we obviously like to kind of I'm trying to think of stuff that I could actually say on air, which I don't know if I can.
It's a podcast. It's not daytime TV, so it's okay. Whatever you want to say is good.
I think it's the kind of thing where just getting people to force and confront saying those kind of words and those kind of topics amuses us. Like we run, I think you've got a US equivalent of it, but we call it Dragon's Den.
Oh, yes. We call that Shark Tank. Yes, I'm familiar with Dragon's Den.
We were on it for our previous business, and being able to go up to these investors who were trying to kind of act it up for TV and talk about stuff and really kind of like turn it on them and get them to really confront and force them to talk about like periods and blood and stuff like that. That was obviously like something that is always quite enjoyable, especially when you've got people like that.
You're trying to like force their hand and lead them down the path. You're like, and where do we insert this? In our vagina. No, say more.
Yeah, but I think like there's a ripple effect of that. You like saying that is really good. Like I have my son. I've got 3 kids. I have my 6-year-old son the other day, who came like most kids do, and came and like bashed me in my vagina.
Yes.
And he was like, peanuts, and which is what obviously he calls testicles. Yes. And I was like, oh. And he said, oh God, sorry. I meant to say vagina. And I was like, that's not what I'm cross about.
Right. Yeah, it's like, when political correctness goes too far, that's very funny. And how do you balance, which is a great thing about social entrepreneurship, how do you balance the need to make money, both for you and for your team, with your greater mission goals? Where do you see that? How do you make that choice of we have to get money in this way, or we have to forego money?
I think when I was introduced to B Corp, I loved it because I loved that whole concept, that duality of profit and purpose. And I think that's one of the big drivers behind what we do is we want to prove that you can make a profit and still do things the right way. We are very profit driven because without companies who are making a profit, this is consigned to the charity sector. It's consigned to NGOs. It's consigned to stuff which it shouldn't be. We need to make sure that this can actually work in a capitalist system. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's always not easy because quite often, the sort of most commercial choice is the one which is the cheapest, which so many times and so many painful decisions we've had to say no to. Yeah. But it sits within this, I guess, sort of delicate scales where we think, and we weigh up, okay, right, what is the best choice that we're going forward? But we do have this set criteria written into our articles, which is all about balancing profit with purpose and making sure that we are doing things which are benefiting environment, society.
Mm-hmm. That's so great. And going forward, what's your target? What's your goal for the next year, the next 2, 5?
So we are looking to take significant market share from the big players and really set ourselves up as the alternative choice to the mainstream, because we have to be sitting alongside them in order to be taken seriously. And we're already doing that through our distribution on shelf. We need to do that a lot more through our education, through listeners like yours, really realizing, okay, cool, there are other options out there that I can use for my period. Or thinking my daughter is about to get hers, rather than start her off on a whole path of disposables, let's just start her off on really good habits. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's really sort of big focus for us over the next 12 months.
There's tons of stuff that people should look up about this topic and realize that they should make that decision for themselves, for somebody that they love, for somebody they care about. I'm so glad that you're at the forefront of this issue. I'll continue to support you. But speaking of which, I wanted to kind of give you the last word here. So how can people support you? What kind of thing would you like to see them do if they take anything away from this episode?
Well, I think obviously, ideally, if you want to go and check out wearedame.co, where all our products are. And if not that, looking at other reusables. But I think the real thing and where this stems from is just talking about this subject. Talk about it to your friends, talk about it to your boyfriends, to your father, to your sons, to your nephews, to your nieces, whoever it might be. The more we normalize this, the better it will be for everyone. We just need to start treating this bodily function as a normal piece of thing.
Completely agree. You have a fan over here. I will continue to support you. Again, thank you very much for taking the time. I'm sorry that it is after an eve of merriment, but it went great, so it's all good. Thank you again, and we'll be in touch. And yes. So I hope everybody listening takes something valuable away from this. And with that, the official part of this podcast is over. If you like these kinds of stories, just remember that it takes incredible effort to bring these things to you. So all I ask is that you subscribe on any podcast platform, rate the show 5 stars, leave a nice review, and of course, support Celia and her mission in any way you can. Share her company, share this story, share it with people who might need to hear it today. That's it. I'm so grateful to have been able to sit down with 50 of some of the coolest people I've ever encountered in my entire life. And here's to 50 more. Thank you for being a listener of the Beat the Often Path podcast. I appreciate you more than you know, and I will see you next week.